Happy April Fool's Day and welcome to our second online class. Today I'll be talking about stakeholders, which are a major component of the digital forum assignment. And if you remember from my last video, you should have 3 stakeholder pages by the end of this. But before we get into the lesson, I'm going to quickly review the answers from the discussion board that you did on Monday. Since the room for debate page really is sort of the foundation of the digital forum. Okay, so if we'll go to that, the first question, what is the central question up for debate here? How does the New York Times establish the exigence of the topic, particularly in that about section? All right, so the first part of this question is easy, right? It's the title of the page. Should foreign language classes be mandatory in college? We get a sense of the exigence of the topic when we go to this introduction here, where the person curating the debate linked to this Princeton University proposal and also an article from Slate magazine that shows that people are talking about this topic, and it really does affect a significant portion of the population, college students, right? All right, the second question. Briefly, in a couple of sentences, summarize each of the 3 positions on the topic. Then describe how these positions are similar and different. So let's go back to the New York Times room for debate here. The first position comes from Cassandra, and she says that while learning languages can cultivate important thinking and communication skills, those skills can also be achieved through other disciplines. Also, it's difficult to get a level of fluency just through classroom practice, and more likely that happens through immersion in other cultures too. The second position is Betty's, and she says that it really depends on the student and his or her field of study. So if it's useful and students are motivated, a foreign language requirement can be beneficial, but probably if you're not directly going to use it, you won't put in the effort and it sort of becomes a waste of time. And then our third position is Taylor's, and she argues that it's not just helpful, but actually necessary to learn a foreign language, especially given today's job market and rising global connectivity. Now for question number 3. Review the assignment description. In which ways is the New York Times room for debate like your own project, the Digital Forum? What differences do you see? Try to find 3 of each. Okay. So just like the Digital Forum, the New York Times is posing a topical question, and they are establishing the exigence of that question using some outside sources. So this is the equivalent of your About page. Then it's showcasing the debate around this question using 3 different perspectives. Okay, and the perspectives are coming from people who are themselves affected by the debate, in this case, incoming college students who would face this requirement. So that's how the 2 assignments are sort of similar. The difference is that these stakeholder pages are really more like op-eds. So they're written in the first person, whereas in your assignment, you're not assuming the position of your own stakeholders. You're not writing as though you are your stakeholders. You're simply explaining their point of view. Okay, and if you click on these, you'll notice that they're not really drawing on outside sources at all. And you need at least 2 sources, so whether they're academic or popular, as long as they're credible. But you need to incorporate 2 different sources on each page. So the About page and then each of the 3 stakeholder pages. They also don't really make use of digital affordances. So you'll see that there aren't hyperlinks here. Aside from the person's picture, they're not really making use of images or other visuals. And when you go back to the front page, there's no required reading list. So in your assignment, remember you're doing something like the annotated bibliography. You're providing a list of 5 scholarly sources and then short annotations for each one. So that's not present in the room for debate. So back to today's lesson on stakeholders. What is a stakeholder? Okay, it is actually not this. It is an individual or a group with some kind of investment in your topic. So we can look at an example. If you go back to our ELMS page in the online learning module, you'll see that I posted this digital forum example, okay? It is from an English 101 student in a different section, and she is exploring child participation in reality television, okay? And the three stakeholders that she showcases, you can find them at the top here, but she's looking at psychologists who are able to speak about the psychological impacts of children having some sort of role in reality TV, then producers who stand to make money from this, and then parents who are ultimately responsible for their children's well-being, okay? So you can find this on ELMS and read more about it. We're also going to be looking at examples next week. But I just wanted to show you that this person has chosen 3 distinct groups and then is examining their point of view on this topic of is child participation in reality TV good or bad? I think I mentioned this in my last video, but you can approach stakeholder pages also as position pages. So instead of 3 individuals or groups, you can choose to write on 3 distinct positions on your topic. So if we go back to the New York Times page, the New York Times here is presenting 3 different positions of college students on the topic of should foreign language classes be mandatory in college, okay? As we know, not all college students think the same way, right? So these are positions rather than stakeholders. So we have Taylor who says, yes, absolutely. Betty who says, well, if it fits in with the student's field of study. And then Cassandra who says communication skills can be developed in other classes. So these are 3 distinct views rather than 3 groups of people or 3 distinct individuals, if that makes sense. Whether you use stakeholders like this person does, or if you use positions like they do in the room for debate, that's up to you. You just need to make sure that your pages are operating on the same level of stasis. So they can't be addressing different questions. There's one specific unifying question, like this one, or like the one in the sample digital forum. And then each of the pages is approaching the question in a different way. So in the sample that I showed you, it's looking at reality TV on a value level. Is it a good or bad thing? And in the room for debate, each student is answering this question, okay? As always, you're welcome to check with me to make sure that your stakeholders or your positions are appropriate, but I'm also hoping that today's assignment will help you with that. So here's what you're going to do. You'll go back to our ELMS page. At the bottom, I've posted this discussion board. So when you click on it, you'll see that I'm asking you to set a timer for about 20 minutes. And then during this time, you're going to write out your specific research question and then brainstorm a list of either people or groups impacted by it, and then an explanation of how each is affected. Alternatively, you could do various positions on the question and then briefly elaborate what those are, okay? You should note that you can list more than 3 groups or positions, so I'm not asking you to nail down what you're going to do for your digital forum right now. This is just sort of a brainstorming session, nothing set in stone. And then at the end of the 20 minutes, you should post what you have. Okay. The second part of this is that you should respond to 2 other discussion board posts. So 2 posts from your classmates. I've listed some ideas here, but you might comment on the person's question, whether it's specific enough, or are the stakeholders or positions they've chosen operating on the same level of stasis, or do they seem to be addressing different questions? Do their explanations of how these groups are affected or what the positions are, do those make sense? Do you think that some of the things on their list are more compelling to look at than others? And if so, what are those? Do you have any suggestions for them? You should make sure that every post gets at least one response. So if you see that one post has already gotten a couple of comments, then comment on a different post. Okay? You should do this tonight by midnight, and of course let me know if you have any questions. Good luck, have fun, and I'll talk to you on Friday.